They say the most dangerous predator is the one that doesn't bare its teeth, the one that walks into your den without claws extended, without armor gleaming, without weapons drawn. The Galactic Council had ruled for 10,000 years, and in all that time they had never met a species quite like humans. Not because humans were the strongest, they weren't. Not because they were the smartest, dozens of species exceeded them. Not even because they were the most advanced. Their ships were outdated, their technology primitive by Council standards. No, humans were dangerous because they understood something the Council had forgotten in their millennia of unchallenged power. That the greatest weapon isn't the one you carry in your hand, it's the one your enemy never sees coming. When two human diplomats walked into Chamber Omega unarmed, wearing simple cloth suits and carrying nothing but data slates, the Council laughed. When the blast doors sealed behind them with a sound like thunder, locking everyone inside, the Council stopped laughing. That was their first mistake. Their second was thinking they were still in control. The observation gallery buzzed with anticipation as species from across the known galaxy pressed against the transparent aluminum barriers, eager to witness what many were calling the trial of the century. Ambassador Kelvin Chen and Ambassador Amara Okafor stood in the preparation chamber, their reflections staring back from the polished metal walls. Neither wore armor, neither carried visible weapons. They looked, by all accounts, like prey walking into a den of predators. "They're going to eat us alive in there," Amara said, straightening her collar for the third time. Her dark skin seemed to absorb the harsh white light of the chamber, making her appear almost shadow-like. Metaphorically speaking, the Krell might try literally. Kelvin adjusted his glasses, an affectation he maintained despite having perfect vision courtesy of gene therapy. At 62, he was old by field diplomat standards, his grey hair and weathered face marking him as someone who'd seen the galaxy's ugliness up close. Let them try. We didn't come here to be liked. We came here to be heard. Heard? Kelvin, they've already made their decision. Earth's petition for full Council membership was denied before we even left Earth. This is just theatre. They want to humiliate us in front of every species in the galaxy. I know. Kelvin's smile didn't reach his eyes. That's what makes this perfect. Before Amara could respond, the chamber door hissed open. A Vrexian guard, all 8 feet of crystalline exoskeleton and mandibles, gestured with one of its 4 arms. The Council is ready for you. Please surrender all weapons, armor, and defensive equipment. We're not carrying any, Kelvin said simply. The Vrexian's translator made a sound like grinding glass, laughter Amara had learned during the 3 months they'd spent on the Council station. Of course you aren't. Humans. Please proceed to Chamber Omega. The corridor leading to the chamber stretched for nearly 100 meters, lined with flags representing each of the 73 Council species. Earth's flag wasn't among them. It wouldn't be, Amara knew, not for decades. Maybe not ever, if things went the way the Council had planned. The massive doors to Chamber Omega stood 30 feet tall, carved from a single piece of Tyrillian black stone, a material supposedly indestructible. Scenes from the Council's greatest victories covered its surface: the subjugation of the Ninth Fleet, the pacification of the Outer Rim, the breaking of the sentient AI rebellion. Every carving showed the same thing: the Council's absolute, unquestionable power. The doors parted silently, revealing the chamber beyond. If someone had asked Amara to describe hell, she might have described Chamber Omega. The room was circular, nearly 200 meters across, with tiers rising up on all sides. Each tier held representatives from Council species, hundreds of them, all focused on the small platform at the chamber's center where she and Kelvin would stand. The acoustics were designed to amplify every word spoken from the center while making it impossible for those standing there to hear individual voices from the tiers. You could shout your truth, but you'd never hear the mockery that answered. Spotlights blazed down from above, hot enough that Amara felt sweat beginning to bead on her forehead before they'd even reached the platform. The rest of the chamber remained in shadow, making the audience seem like an infinite sea of eyes and teeth and claws, all focused on the 2 humans crossing the floor. Ambassador Chen, Ambassador Okafor. The voice boomed from everywhere at once, amplified by the chamber's systems. You stand before the Galactic Council to present Earth's petition for full membership. The Council has reviewed your species application and finds it lacking. Amara recognized the speaker, Grand Arbiter Thexkel, a Mordanian who'd held his position for 3 centuries. His species resembled nothing so much as walking lizards, if lizards stood 9 feet tall and had a reputation for eating species that displeased them. Literally. Kelvin stepped onto the platform, Amara beside him. The moment their feet touched the raised surface, she felt the subtle vibration beneath her feet. Active scanners, checking for weapons, for armor, for anything that might pose a threat to the Council. They found nothing, of course. She and Kelvin had made sure of that. We appreciate the Council's time, Kelvin said, his voice steady despite the hundreds of hostile faces staring down at him. We understand that Earth's application has been rejected. We've come to understand why, and to present our case one final time. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not polite amusement, but the kind of laughter predators make when prey wanders into their territory. Your case? Texkull's translator made his voice drip with condescension. Human. Your species has been spacefaring for less than 2 centuries. You have no significant military fleet. Your technology is generations behind the Council standard. Your homeworld is still recovering from your own self-inflicted ecological disasters. You have no resources we need, no strategic position we value, no capabilities we lack. Tell me, what exactly is your case for membership? Our persistence, Amara said. Every head in the chamber turned toward her. Every species in this council was given membership after proving their worth through military conquest, technological advancement, or resource contribution. Earth has none of these things, but we're still here. We've survived first contact, navigated your political systems, and earned the right to stand on this platform. That should mean something. More laughter! Harsher this time! A Krell representative stood in one of the upper tiers, its tentacles writhing in what Amara had learned was aggressive posturing. Persistence? Is that what you call it? We call it stubbornness. Foolishness! Your species was nearly destroyed by your first encounter with the Vrexian expansion fleet. You were saved only because the Council intervened. You owe your existence to our mercy, and yet you dare demand membership? We're not demanding, Kelvin said quietly. We're asking. There's a difference. Is there? Fexgal leaned forward on his throne. Because from where I sit, you look like beggars trying to enter a feast uninvited. You have nothing to offer, nothing we need. Why should we grant Earth membership? Because we're different, Amara said. The chamber fell silent. She felt every eye on her, felt the weight of their attention like a physical thing. Every species in this council thinks the same way, acts the same way. You've created an echo chamber of power, and it's made you weak. You need perspective. You need someone who'll question your assumptions. You need humans. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the chamber erupted in outrage. Representatives shouted in 100 different languages, their translators creating a cacophony of rage and insult. Amara stood her ground, Kelvin beside her, as the storm of fury washed over them. Texkal raised one clawed hand, and the chamber fell silent instantly. Weak? You called the Galactic Council weak? You, whose species can barely defend a single solar system. You dare. I do dare, Amara interrupted. Because someone has to. Look around this chamber, Grand Arbiter. Every species here is comfortable, safe, unchallenged. You've had no real threats in centuries. You've grown soft, and you don't even realize it. Soft? A Tekarian representative, all chrome and circuitry, spoke from the mid-tier. We have the largest military fleet in galactic history. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have technology your species can't even comprehend. And you call us soft? I call you unprepared, Kelvin said. You've spent so long being the apex predator that you've forgotten what it's like to be prey. Humans remember. We carry that memory in our genes, in our history, in everything we do. And that makes us valuable, whether you want to admit it or not. Texkal's laugh was like stones grinding together. Valuable? You have quite the opinion of yourselves for a species that nearly destroyed its own homeworld through incompetence. Tell me, humans, what exactly makes you so special? Your wars? Your pollution? Your inability to unify even your own planet without outside pressure? Our survival instinct? Amara said. Our adaptability. Our refusal to give up even when the odds are impossible. Those traits kept us alive when we should have died. They'll keep the council alive too if you're wise enough to listen. Listen. Thexkal stood, his full height making him seem like a tower of scales and muscle. I've heard enough. The council has voted. Earth's petition is denied. You may leave. No, Kelvin said softly. The chamber went completely silent. In 10,000 years of council history, no one had ever refused a dismissal from the Grand Arbiter. What did you say? Thexkal's voice was deadly quiet. I said no. We're not leaving. Not until you hear what we really came to say. Thexkal's lips pulled back, revealing rows of serrated teeth. You forget yourself, human. You are in my chamber. You stand on my platform. You breathe by my permission. If I order the guards to remove you, then order them, Amara said. Call your guards. Lock the doors. Do whatever you want. We're not leaving until we're done. For a long moment, Thexkal stared at them. Then he smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. If you wish to be trapped in here with us, so be it. He gestured with one claw. Seal the chamber. Let no one enter or leave until I say otherwise. Massive gears engaged with a sound like thunder. The blast doors, designed to contain a tactical nuclear explosion, slammed shut, their locks engaging with finality. The observation galleries were cut off, their view now limited to video feeds. Chamber Omega was now completely isolated from the rest of the station. Exkal's smile widened. There, you have your wish, humans. You're locked in here with every council representative. 300 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And you're just two unarmed diplomats. Whatever you came to say it quickly. My patience has limits. Amara and Kelvin exchanged a look. Then, simultaneously, they smiled. Thank you, Grand Arbiter, Kelvin said. You've just made this much easier. Amara reached into her jacket pocket. Every guard in the chamber tensed, weapons charging. But she pulled out only a small remote, no bigger than her thumb. You said we came here unarmed. That's true. We're not carrying weapons. We don't need to. She pressed the button. Nothing happened. The chamber remained exactly as it was. Sealed, spotlit, filled with hostile aliens. The council representatives began to laugh again, the sound echoing off the walls. Was that supposed to frighten us? Thexkal asked. Some kind of human trick? A bluff? No bluff, Kelvin said. Just a signal. You see, you were right about one thing. We're not warriors. We're not conquerors. We're diplomats. But you made a critical error in your assessment of humanity. You assumed that being unarmed meant being harmless. You assumed that because we didn't bring weapons, we didn't bring power. What are you talking about? The Krell representatives' tentacles were moving faster now, aggressive posturing shifting to nervous agitation. 3 months ago, when we first arrived at this station, you scanned us. You searched us. You made sure we posed no threat. And we didn't. 2 humans, armed with nothing but words and data slates, completely harmless. Amara's smile was cold. What you didn't scan was the cargo vessel that docked a week after we arrived. The one carrying Earth's official gift to the Council. 500 tons of rare Earth metals. A gesture of goodwill. You scanned the cargo, verified the metals, and sent the ship on its way. You never scanned the cargo containers themselves. The chamber was silent now, completely, utterly silent. Those containers are currently distributed throughout this station, Kelvin continued. In the ventilation systems, in the power conduits, in the structural supports. And 15 seconds ago, when Amara pressed that button, they all activated. Activated? Activated what? Thexkal's voice had lost its confidence. Nothing harmful, Amara assured him. We told you we're diplomats, not warriors. We didn't come here to destroy. We came here to be heard. And now, finally, you're going to listen. A Vrexian security officer was frantically working at a console near one of the sealed doors. Grand Arbiter! The chamber's systems are... They're not responding. None of them. Life support, doors, communications. Everything's been locked out. I can't override it. That's because you're not in control anymore, Kelvin said. For the next 60 minutes, Chamber Omega is ours. The station security can't get in. You can't get out. And everyone in this room is going to sit down and listen to what we have to say. Thexkal took a step forward, and Amara saw murder in his eyes. You've just signed your species' death warrant. When you get out of here, you're going to grant Earth full council membership. Amara said flatly. Because in the next hour, we're going to explain exactly why you need us. Not because we asked nicely. Not because we begged. But because we're the only species in this galaxy who remembers what it's like to be afraid. The chamber remained silent. 300 representatives, countless guards, the most powerful beings in the galaxy. All of them trapped. All of them forced to listen. Kelvin smiled. Now then, shall we begin? Kelvin walked slowly around the platform, hands clasped behind his back like a professor giving a lecture. The spotlights tracked his movement, keeping him illuminated while the tiers of council representatives remained in shadow. Amara stayed at the center, the remote still visible in her hand, a silent reminder that the humans controlled the situation now. Let me tell you a story, Kelvin began, his voice carrying through the chamber with crystal clarity. 300 years ago, Earth faced extinction, not from aliens, not from war, but from ourselves. Climate change, nuclear weapons, pandemics, resource depletion. We had a dozen different ways we were killing our own planet. Scientists predicted we had maybe 50 years before complete ecological collapse. Politicians argued while cities flooded. Corporations profited while forests burned. We were watching our world die, and we couldn't agree on how to save it. A Mordanian representative, not Thexgal, but someone from his clan, hissed from the mid-tier, "We know your history, human. Your species' incompetence is well documented. What's your point?" "My point," Kelvin said, stopping to face the speaker, "is that we didn't die. Against all odds, against every prediction, against the momentum of our own self-destruction, we survived. Do you know how?" Silence greeted his question. Amara could see council representatives shifting in their seats, some leaning forward despite themselves. They knew Earth's history academically from reports and databases, but they'd never heard it from human lips, never felt the weight of it delivered with the quiet intensity Kelvin brought to his words. "We learned to be afraid of ourselves," Kelvin continued. "Not the healthy fear that makes you cautious, but the bone-deep terror of knowing that your worst enemy stares back at you from the mirror every morning. We looked at our world dying and realized that no one was coming to save us. No advanced aliens would swoop in with magic technology. No divine intervention would fix our mistakes. If humanity was going to survive, we had to save ourselves. And that meant changing everything about how we thought, how we acted, how we existed." He resumed walking, his footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. "It took us 100 years. 100 years of sacrifice, of hard choices, of people giving up comfort and convenience for the chance that their grandchildren might have a future. We rebuilt our economy, redesigned our cities, revolutionized our agriculture. We made fusion power work not because we were smarter than anyone else, but because we had to. We reversed climate change not through some miracle, but through billions of small actions, day after day, year after year." "Very inspiring," Thexgal said, though his tone suggested anything but. "You fixed the mess you created. Should we applaud your basic competence?" Amara stepped forward. "You should recognize the lesson. Because while we were learning to save ourselves, you were learning to rely on your power. The Council hasn't faced a real challenge in centuries. Your last major conflict was against the AI rebellion, and that was 400 years ago. Since then, peace, stability, unchallenged dominance across the known galaxy. You've had it easy for so long that you've forgotten how to struggle. Easy?" A Krell representative surged to its full height, tentacles whipping in agitation. "Our species has maintained order across 73 worlds. We've prevented wars, mediated disputes, enforced justice. You've maintained the status quo," Kelvin interrupted. "There's a difference. Maintenance doesn't require innovation. It doesn't demand adaptation. It just requires doing what you've always done, over and over, until you forget there's any other way to do things." It pulled out his data slate. The guards tensed, but he made no threatening moves and projected an image into the air above the platform. It showed a star map, the familiar swirl of the galaxy with Council territory marked in blue. It covered roughly 40% of the known galaxy, a massive empire by any measure. "This is what you control," Kelvin said. "Impressive. Now let me show you what you don't see." Red markers appeared throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of them, scattered across both Council space and the uncharted regions beyond. Each marker pulsed like a warning beacon. "What is this?" Thexgal demanded. These are threats, Amara said. Each red marker represents a potential crisis that Earth's intelligence network has identified in the past decade. Resource conflicts, emerging aggressive species, unexplained energy signatures in deep space, ancient weapons caches, unstable wormholes, rogue AI fragments that survived your purge 400 years ago. She let that sink in for a moment, watching as council representatives focused on the star map with new intensity. Earth has been a spacefaring species for less than 2 centuries, and even we found these threats. How many did you find? How many did you even look for? The silence that answered her question was damning. Kelvin zoomed in on one of the red markers, expanding it to show detailed scan data. This particular threat is in the outer rim, about 20 light-years beyond your current border. We detected it 6 years ago. It's a gravatic anomaly that's growing exponentially. Current projections suggest it'll start affecting nearby star systems within 15 years, and if left unchecked, it could destabilize an entire sector within 50 years. Did you know about this? Thexkull's expression was unreadable, but his silence spoke volumes. We didn't think so, Amara said. And that's just one example. Should we go through the others? There are 427 markers on this map. Earth found them all. Your scanners? Your observation networks? Your vast intelligence apparatus? They missed all of them. Want to know why? Enlighten us, Thexkull said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Because you stopped looking, Kelvin said simply. You've been in power so long that you assume you see everything. You've built systems designed to maintain control over what you already have, not to discover what you don't know. Your observation networks look inward, at your own territory, watching for rebellion or unrest. They don't look outward because you've convinced yourselves there's nothing out there that could threaten you. Amara advanced the display again. This time, it showed a graph, 2 lines diverging over time. This is a comparison of military innovation. The blue line represents the Council's advancement in weapons technology over the past 5 centuries. Notice the slope? It's nearly flat. You've made incremental improvements, refinements to existing designs, but no significant breakthroughs. Now look at the red line. That's humanity's military advancement over the past 2 centuries. The red line climbed steeply, nearly vertical in places. It was nowhere near the Council's current level. The blue line was still far higher on the absolute scale, but the rate of change was dramatic. We went from chemical rockets to fusion drives in 150 years, Kelvin said. From kinetic weapons to directed energy systems in 80 years. From planetary defense to system-wide sensor nets in 60 years. Not because we're smarter than you, but because we're afraid of what we don't know. Every human weapon, every human ship, every human defensive system is built on the assumption that something worse is coming. We prepare for threats we haven't even discovered yet. A Takarian representative, its chrome surface reflecting the star map's light, spoke in a synthesized voice devoid of emotion. Your paranoia is not a virtue. It's a waste of resources. The galaxy is stable. Your preparation for imaginary threats serves no purpose. Imaginary? Amara laughed, but there was no humor in it. Let me show you something else. The display changed again, showing what looked like a ship. But it was unlike any design in the Council database. Sleek, organic, with technology that seemed to blur the line between machine and living tissue. Even in the static image, it looked predatory. This was found 3 years ago by a human survey ship operating in uncharted space, roughly 100 light-years from here. The survey crew discovered a debris field, the remains of a civilization that had been completely wiped out. This ship was in that debris field. It was deactivated, dormant. But our analysis suggests it's only about 500 years old. She let that sink in. 500 years ago, the Council was at the height of its power, having just defeated the AI rebellion. While they celebrated their victory, an entire civilization had been destroyed, and they never even noticed. We don't know who built this ship, Kelvin said. We don't know what destroyed the civilization that created it. We don't know if there are more of them. We don't even know if the threat that killed them is still out there. But we know one thing for certain. While the Council was congratulating itself on maintaining peace, something out there was busy committing genocide. Thexkull had gone very still. Why haven't you shared this information before? We tried, Amara said. We submitted reports to the Council Intelligence Division. We requested a joint investigation. We offered to share all our data. Do you know what response we got? Our reports were filed under low priority concerns. The request for investigation was denied due to insufficient evidence of immediate threat. Our offer to share data was rejected because Earth lacked the proper security clearances. She walked to the edge of the platform, staring up at the tiers of representatives. You dismissed us because we're small, because we're new, because we don't fit your idea of what a council species should be. You were so busy maintaining your power structure that you ignored actual threats to galactic security. That's not strength. That's arrogance. And arrogance gets people killed. Kelvin pulled up another image, this one showing a complex network of trade routes, communication lines, and defensive positions. This is your current strategic posture. It's designed to maintain control over your territory and respond to internal threats. It's a defensive configuration appropriate for an empire at peace. But look what happens when we introduce an external threat. He marked one of the mysterious ship's possible points of origin on the map. The entire defensive network lit up in red, showing vulnerabilities, gaps in coverage, response times that stretched into weeks or months. If something attacked from outside council space, their carefully maintained defensive posture would collapse like a house of cards. You're not prepared for a real war, Amara said bluntly. You're prepared for peacekeeping. You're prepared for police actions against rebellious colonies. You're prepared to maintain order. But if something actually hostile came at you from outside, something that doesn't care about your laws, your treaties, your 10,000 years of dominance, you'd be fighting with one hand tied behind your back because you've forgotten how to really fight. And you think you can teach us? Texcal's voice dripped with scorn, but Amara heard the uncertainty beneath it. You, with your tiny fleet and primitive weapons? Yes, Kelvin said, because we're not teaching you how to fight. We're teaching you how to be afraid. Real fear. The kind that keeps you alive. You've been apex predators for so long that you've lost your edge. You've forgotten that the galaxy doesn't care about your power or your history. It'll kill you just as dead as it would kill us. The difference is, we remember that. We live with that knowledge every day. He gestured at the star map still hanging in the air. Every one of those red markers represents a lesson humanity learned the hard way. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we reached the stars. We've faced extinction more times than we can count. We've looked into the abyss and seen our own mortality staring back. That knowledge has shaped everything about how we approach the universe. We don't assume we're safe. We don't assume we're strong enough. We prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Amara walked back to the center of the platform. That's what we offer the Council. Not weapons, not technology, not resources. We offer perspective. We offer the institutional knowledge of a species that has survived against impossible odds. We offer a culture that never stops asking, what if? We offer paranoia, if you want to call it that, but it's paranoia that keeps you breathing when something worse comes along. And if we refuse? Thexcal asked. If we reject your offer and remove you from this chamber? Then you reject it, Kelvin said with a shrug. We can't force you to accept Earth's membership. We can only present our case and hope you're wise enough to listen. But consider this. We found 427 threats you missed. We discovered evidence of an unknown hostile force that destroyed an entire civilization while you were busy celebrating your victory over the AI. We've developed military technology faster in 2 centuries than you have in 5. And we did all of that while we were still trying to survive our own self-inflicted disasters. He paused, letting his words echo through the chamber. Imagine what we could do as full council members. With access to your resources, your intelligence networks, your research facilities. Imagine what we could accomplish together if you let us. Amara checked her chronometer. We've been locked in here for 38 minutes. You have 22 minutes left to sit with that thought. Then we'll release the chamber systems, open the doors, and return control to you. What you do with the information we've shared is up to you. You expect us to grant you membership based on fear? Texcal asked. Based on threats that may not even exist? No, Kelvin said. We expect you to grant us membership based on pragmatism. You're right that some of these threats might not exist. Some of those red markers might be false positives. But can you afford to bet your empire on that assumption? Can you risk dismissing the evidence of that unknown ship? Can you gamble that your defensive network is adequate when we've shown you its vulnerabilities? He smiled, and there was something fierce in that expression. You've ruled for 10,000 years. That's an impressive achievement. But dynasties that last 10,000 years don't do it by refusing to adapt. They do it by recognizing when they need new blood, new ideas, new perspectives. Earth offers you all of that. We're not asking to replace you. We're asking to join you, to share what we know and learn from what you know, to make the Council stronger by bringing in a species that remembers how to struggle. The chamber fell silent again. Amara could see Council representatives conferring among themselves, their translators creating a low murmur of conversation that the acoustics couldn't quite suppress. Some looked angry, others thoughtful, still others uncertain. Thexgal stood slowly, his full height making him tower over even the other Mordanians in the chamber. You've given us much to consider, humans. I will admit that your presentation has been effective, but you've also committed an act of aggression against the Council. You've seized control of this chamber, held us hostage. We've inconvenienced you for an hour, Amara interrupted. We haven't harmed anyone. We haven't threatened violence. We've simply ensured that you'd listen to what we had to say. If that's aggression, then what do you call denying a species petition without fair hearing? What do you call dismissing intelligence reports because they came from the wrong source? What do you call refusing to investigate potential threats because they don't fit your worldview? Kelvin held up a hand before Thexgal could respond. We understand that our methods were unconventional. But we're humans. Unconventional is what we do. It's baked into our culture, our history, our genetic code. We're the species that looked at the sky and decided to fly. We're the species that stared at the atom and decided to split it. We're the species that faced our own extinction and decided to survive anyway. Unconventional thinking is how we got here. It's what we bring to the table. He glanced at Amara, who nodded. The chronometer showed 18 minutes remaining. We have a few more things to share before our time is up, Amara said. And then we'll let you make your decision. But before we continue, I want you to understand something. Earth didn't send us here to beg. We're not here as supplicants asking for your mercy. We're here as equals, offering partnership. You may not see us that way yet, but you will. Because whether you grant us membership today or 100 years from now, humanity will still be here. We'll still be watching the stars. We'll still be finding the threats you miss and developing the technology you ignore. The only question is whether you'll work with us or against us. She pulled up a new display, and this one made several council representatives gasp. It showed Earth's current military fleet, not the outdated ships they'd shown the council during the application process, but the real fleet, the one they'd been building in secret for the past decade. Surprise, Amara said softly. The holographic display floating above the platform showed a fleet that shouldn't exist. Sleek warships with fusion cores that burned brighter than anything in the Council's database. Carriers equipped with fighter craft that used propulsion systems the Council's scientists had deemed theoretically possible, but practically impossible. Destroyers wrapped in adaptive armor that could shift its molecular structure in response to different weapon types. And at the center of it all, 3 massive dreadnoughts that made even the Council's largest vessels look outdated. That's impossible, a Vrexian military commander said from the upper tier, breaking protocol to speak without being recognized. Our intelligence shows Earth has maybe 24 combat-capable vessels, all based on designs we sold you 30 years ago. That fleet, that would require resources and construction facilities you don't have. Resources we don't have according to the surveys you conducted, Kelvin corrected. Facilities you didn't know existed because you never looked. You've been watching Earth for 2 centuries, but you've only been watching what we wanted you to see. The shipyards, the military bases, the resource extraction operations you know about. Those are real, but they're also decoys. While your intelligence services were cataloging our official capabilities, we were building our actual fleet in places you never thought to look. Imara zoomed in on one of the dreadnoughts, rotating the image to show details that made several Council military representatives lean forward with sudden interest. This is the UES Indomitable, flagship of Earth's 3rd Fleet. Fusion core with output levels 40% higher than your best models. Point defense systems that can track and eliminate threats at ranges you'd consider impossible. Electronic warfare capabilities that could shut down entire battle groups. And most importantly, a crew that's been training for real combat, not peacekeeping operations. You're threatening us, Thexgal said, but his voice lacked its earlier certainty. Showing us your military might is a threat. No, Grand Arbiter, Kelvin said. We're showing you our commitment. You questioned whether Earth had anything to offer the Council. We're demonstrating that we do. This fleet represents every advantage that comes with Earth's membership. Our innovation, our determination, our refusal to accept limitations. But more than that, it represents what we could build together. He changed the display to show a split screen. Earth's fleet on one side, the Council's on the other.
Your fleet is larger.
Your ships are more numerous. Your firepower on paper exceeds ours significantly. But look at the design philosophy. Your ships are built for dominance, for overwhelming force against inferior opponents. They're designed to fight enemies who can't match your technology or numbers. What happens when you face an enemy who can? What happens when you encounter something with equal or superior capabilities? A Mordanian admiral, scales gleaming in the chamber's light, stood from his seat. Are you suggesting our fleet is inadequate? We have maintained galactic peace for centuries with these ships. We have crushed every rebellion, defeated every threat, enforced order across 73 worlds. Our military record speaks for itself. Against internal threats, yes, Amara agreed. But notice the pattern. Every conflict you've won has been against species you already controlled or civilizations less advanced than you. You've never faced a peer competitor. You've never had to fight someone with equivalent technology and resources. Your doctrine, your tactics, your entire military culture is built around the assumption of superiority. And that assumption is dangerous. She highlighted several design elements on the Council ships. Your vessels have minimal redundancy. If their primary systems are damaged, they're crippled. They rely heavily on centralized computer control, which makes them vulnerable to electronic warfare. Their armor is designed to resist known weapon types, but it's inflexible. It can't adapt to new threats. And your crews are trained for precision operations, not desperate improvisation. You've optimized for perfection against known threats. We've optimized for survival against unknown ones. Kelvin pulled up a simulation, the holographic display showing a battle scenario between Council forces and an unknown enemy. The simulation ran for less than 3 minutes before the Council fleet was in disarray, ships disabled or destroyed by tactics they hadn't anticipated, weapons they hadn't prepared for, and strategies that exploited every vulnerability Amara had identified. This is speculative, of course, Kelvin said. But our wargaming suggests that, against a sophisticated external threat, the Council fleet would struggle. Not because you lack firepower or ships, but because you lack experience fighting an enemy who doesn't play by your rules. You've spent so long being the strongest that you've forgotten how to fight dirty. And you have this experience? Bexkel asked skeptically. We do, Amara said. Not against aliens. We haven't fought any real wars in space yet. But we have centuries of experience fighting ourselves. Human history is a catalogue of desperate struggles between near-peer competitors. We've refined the art of asymmetric warfare, of using inferior resources to defeat superior forces, of turning enemy strengths into weaknesses. Every lesson we learn from our own bloody history has been incorporated into how we approach military doctrine. She brought up another simulation, this one showing the same unknown enemy facing a combined Council Earth fleet. The battle was still brutal, but the outcome was dramatically different. The Earth ships, though fewer and individually weaker, exploited openings and created opportunities that the Council vessels could capitalize on. Their adaptive tactics forced the enemy to constantly adjust, preventing them from using the strategies that had worked in the first simulation. We don't win that battle because we're stronger, Kelvin said. We win because we're more flexible, because we expect things to go wrong and prepare for it. Because we've built our entire military culture around the assumption that Murphy's Law is real, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, usually at the worst possible moment. That mindset makes us valuable force multipliers for the Council fleet. The Tekarean representative who had spoken earlier raised one chrome appendage. You speak of contributions Earth could make as a member species, but you came here unarmed. You said you weren't warriors. Yet now you display a hidden fleet and lecture us on military doctrine. Which is the truth? Are you peaceful diplomats or hidden warriors? Both, Amara said simply. We're diplomats because we prefer to solve problems without violence. We're warriors because we know that preference isn't always possible. Humans learned long ago that hoping for peace while preparing for war isn't hypocritical. It's realistic. Every human diplomat is trained to think strategically. Every human soldier is trained to consider diplomatic solutions. We don't compartmentalize the way you do. Kelvin checked his chronometer. 8 minutes remaining. He took a breath and changed the display once more. this time showing something that made several council representatives hiss in surprise or confusion. It was a chart showing resource allocation across council space, specifically focusing on research and development spending. The council currently dedicates approximately 4% of its collective GDP to research and development, he said. That's actually quite good by most standards. But look at where that spending goes. He highlighted the breakdown. 78% goes to refinement of existing technologies. 13% goes to luxury or convenience innovations. 7% goes to pure scientific research with no immediate applications. And only 2% goes to potentially disruptive or revolutionary research. He let those numbers hang in the air for a moment. Earth dedicates 12% of our GDP to research and development. And of that, 30% goes to high-risk, high-reward projects that might completely fail or might revolutionize everything. We pour resources into crazy ideas because we can't afford to assume we already know everything. That desperation has led to breakthroughs you dismissed as impossible. Amara pulled up a list of Earth technologies that had been rejected by council peer review as impractical or impossible. The list was long. Adaptive molecular armor. Quantum entanglement communication with zero lag time. Biological computing systems that merged organic and digital processing. Gravity manipulation beyond simple artificial gravity. Each one had been submitted to council scientific journals and rejected. Each one was now operational on Earth ships. We're not smarter than you, Amara said, but we're more willing to fail. Council scientists fear failure because it reflects poorly on their reputation, their species standing, their career prospects. Human scientists expect failure. We budget for it. We design experiments knowing that 90% will fail, because those failures teach us where the boundaries really are. That willingness to fail has given us capabilities you don't have, not because we're superior, but because we're desperate enough to try things you won't. A Krell researcher, tentacles moving in a pattern Amara had learned indicated intense interest, spoke up. If your technologies are so revolutionary, why hide them? Why not share them with the scientific community? We tried, Kelvin said. Do you remember the Earth proposals for joint research projects? The offers to share preliminary data on our fusion core improvements? The requests for collaboration on quantum communication? All rejected. The official reason was always the same. Earth's data didn't meet council scientific standards. But the real reason was simpler. You didn't want to admit that humans might have discovered something you hadn't. It would undermine the narrative that the council represents the pinnacle of galactic civilization. He softened his tone slightly. We don't blame you for that. It's human nature, well, sentient nature, to protect your sense of superiority. We do it too. But it's a luxury you can no longer afford. Not with threats emerging that you don't even know exist. Not with technologies developing that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Not with humanity standing here offering you a choice. Excal had been silent for several minutes, which was unusual for him. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured, careful. You've made your point, humans. You've demonstrated capabilities we didn't know you possessed. You've identified threats we overlooked. You've shown vulnerabilities in our systems and proposed solutions. And you've done all of this while holding us hostage in our own chamber. Quite the presentation. He stood slowly, his full height making him loom over the other representatives. But you've also revealed something else. You've shown us that Earth is willing to engage in deception, to hide its true capabilities, to manipulate situations to its advantage. You've demonstrated that you're clever, resourceful, and not above using coercion to get what you want. How can we trust a species that has proven so adept at misdirection? Amara and Kelvin exchanged a look. This was the moment they'd prepared for, the challenge they knew would come. You can't, Amara said bluntly. Not completely. Not immediately. Trust has to be earned over time, through actions and consistency. But ask yourself this, Grand Arbiter. Would you prefer a member species that's honest about its capabilities and intentions, or one that's dishonest about both? We've been deceptive, yes, Kelvin admitted. We hid our fleet, our technologies, our intelligence network. We presented ourselves as weaker than we were, but we did it because we had to. If we'd revealed our true capabilities from the start, what would have happened? Would you have welcomed us as equals, or would you have perceived us as a threat and moved to contain or eliminate us? The silence that greeted his question was answer enough. Exactly. Kelvin continued. We hid our strength because revealing it would have made us a target. We played weak because strength without protection is just an invitation for someone stronger to crush you. That's a lesson every small species learns quickly, or they don't survive long enough to learn it at all. You want to know if you can trust us? Ask instead whether our incentives align with yours. Amara brought up a final display. This one showing a strategic map of the galaxy with various projections for the next century. This is what happens if Earth remains outside the Council. We continue building our fleet, developing our technologies, expanding our influence. We become a competing power block, maybe ally with other non-Council species, create an alternative to your hegemony. Within 100 years, you're looking at a potential rival instead of a partner. Is that what you want? She shifted the display to show a different scenario. This is what happens if Earth joins the Council. Our fleet integrates with yours, our technologies are shared, our intelligence networks collaborate. We identify threats together, develop responses together, present a unified front to whatever the galaxy throws at us. The Council becomes stronger, more adaptable, more resilient. Which future do you prefer? The chronometer showed 2 minutes remaining. Kelvin held up the remote Amara had used to lock down the chamber. In 2 minutes, this door will open. The systems will return to your control. We'll have no leverage, no hostages, no power over you. What happens next is entirely your choice. But before you decide, I want you to understand something. He looked up at the tiers of representatives, making eye contact with as many as he could. Everything we've shown you today, the threats, the technologies, the fleet, the vulnerabilities in your systems, we're offering all of it to you freely. Not as a bargaining chip, not as a bribe. We're giving you this information regardless of your decision because it's the right thing to do. Those threats exist whether you grant us membership or not. Those vulnerabilities in your fleet need to be addressed whether we're allies or not. The galaxy doesn't care about our politics, and neither should its survival. Amara stepped forward. We want to join the Council, yes. We believe humanity deserves a seat at the table, and we've made our case for why. But if you reject us today, we'll still share what we know. We'll still warn you about threats we discover. We'll still offer cooperation where it benefits galactic security, because at the end of the day, we're all living in the same galaxy. If something out there is dangerous enough to destroy an entire civilization, it's dangerous enough to threaten all of us, Council members and non-members alike. Kelvin looked at his chronometer. 30 seconds. You've ruled for 10,000 years, Grand Arbiter. That's an achievement few civilizations can match. Do you know how you maintain that for another 10,000 years? By recognizing when you need help. By accepting that no species, no matter how powerful, knows everything. By being willing to adapt, to change, to bring in new perspectives even when they're uncomfortable. That's what separates empires that last from empires that crumble. Earth offers you a choice, Amara said. You can vote yes and gain a partner that brings innovation, vigilance, and a perspective forged in survival. Or you can vote no and gain what? Pride? The satisfaction of maintaining your exclusivity? The comfort of not having to admit you might have been wrong about us? 5 seconds. Kelvin pressed a button on his data slate. Throughout the station, the systems that had locked down Chamber Omega began to disengage. The massive blast doors remained closed, but everyone in the room could hear the locks disengaging one by one. Power and control were flowing back to the Council systems, exactly as promised. The choice is yours, Kelvin said. It always was. We just wanted to make sure you understood what you were choosing between. The final lock disengaged with a resonant clang that echoed through the chamber. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blast doors began to open, light from the corridor beyond spilling into the chamber. Guards rushed in, weapons raised, ready to extract the human diplomats or protect the Council representatives. No one was quite sure which. Thexkal raised one clawed hand, and the guards froze. He stared down at Kelvin and Amara for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. Not the mocking laugh from earlier, but something different. Genuine amusement mixed with grudging respect. Humans, he said, shaking his head. You walk into the most powerful chamber in the galaxy unarmed and manage to hold it hostage, with nothing but cargo containers and audacity. You reveal a hidden fleet while claiming to be peaceful. You lecture us about our own vulnerabilities while asking us to trust you. You're either the bravest species I've ever encountered or the most foolish. Why not both? Amara asked with a slight smile. Thexgall's laugh deepened. Why not both indeed? He looked around the chamber at the other council representatives. I propose we adjourn for 1 hour to discuss what we've learned. Then we'll reconvene to vote on Earth's petition. Does anyone object? No one did. The representatives began filing out, some quickly, others slowly, many deep in conversation with their colleagues. Kelvin and Amara stood alone on the platform, watching them go. Think it worked? Amara asked quietly. We'll know in an hour, Kelvin replied. But we did what we came to do. The rest is up to them. 63 minutes later, they were called back to Chamber Omega. This time, the doors remained open. This time, the lights were normal, not the harsh spotlights from before. This time, when they walked to the platform, the atmosphere in the chamber was different. Not friendly exactly, but not hostile either. Curious, wary, interested. Thexgall stood at his position, formal and imposing. Ambassadors Chen and Okafor. The Council has deliberated on Earth's petition for full membership. Before I announce our decision, I want to make something clear. What you did today was unprecedented. It was also manipulative, coercive, and bordering on an act of war. By all rights, we should reject your petition solely based on your actions in this chamber. Amara felt her heart sink, but Kelvin remained steady beside her. However, Thexgall continued, and something that might have been a smile crossed his reptilian features. You also demonstrated exactly the qualities you claimed Earth would bring to the Council. Innovation, determination, unconventional thinking, a willingness to take risks, and, perhaps most importantly, the courage to speak truth to power regardless of the consequences. He paused, letting the moment stretch. The Council has voted, by a margin of 58 to 15, with 12 abstentions, Earth's petition for full membership is approved. Some representatives cheered, others protested, still others sat in stunned silence. Amara grabbed Kelvin's arm, not quite believing what she'd heard. Kelvin's face remained calm, but she could see the relief in his eyes. Thexgall raised his hand for silence. Effective immediately, Earth is granted full council membership, with all rights, responsibilities, and privileges thereof. Ambassador Chen, Ambassador Okafor, welcome to the Galactic Council. May your species prove as valuable as you've claimed. As the chamber slowly emptied, a few representatives approached the platform. The Krell researcher who'd asked about technology, the Vrexian military commander who'd questioned their fleet, the Takarian who'd challenged their motives. One by one, they introduced themselves, offered congratulations, and began discussing potential collaborations. Amara watched them with a mixture of satisfaction and lingering nervousness. They'd done it. Against impossible odds, using methods that should never have worked. They'd secured Earth's place among the stars. But as she looked at Kelvin, she saw the same thought reflected in his eyes. This was just the beginning. The hard part, proving they deserved this opportunity, was yet to come. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, humanity had earned its seat at the table. Today, 2 unarmed diplomats had walked into a chamber of power and walked out victorious. Today, the galaxy learned that humans were not to be underestimated. Somewhere in the observation gallery, watching the celebration on the chamber floor, a figure stood alone. They watched the human ambassadors with interest, noting their body language, their interactions, their carefully controlled triumph. Then they turned and walked away, pulling out a communication device as they went. This is Agent Krell 79 reporting, they said quietly. The humans have been granted council membership. Recommend we move to Phase 2 of the contingency plan. If their intelligence network is as good as they claim, they'll discover the Orion threat within 6 months. We need to be ready when they do. The response came quickly. Acknowledged. Begin preparations. The real test begins now. The figure smiled. Humans thought they'd won by joining the council. They had no idea they'd just walked into the galaxy's oldest trap. The burden of protecting it. Time would tell if they were truly ready for what was coming. Time would tell if their vaunted survival instincts could handle what lurked in the dark spaces between the stars. But that was a story for another day. For now, humanity celebrated. And in the Council's long history, that alone was worth noting. It wasn't often that anyone gave them cause to celebrate. The doors to Chamber Omega closed one final time. The carved scenes of the Council's victories now joined by a new story. The story of 2 humans who came unarmed and left with everything. The story of the day the galaxy learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or strength, It was the absolute refusal to give up no matter the odds. And in a galaxy full of ancient powers and sleeping threats, that might just be the weapon that mattered most.